You won't believe what happened to me recently, and it all started with a totally made-up cat. Yeah, you heard that right. My HOA neighbor, let's just call her Karen, actually sued me over a pet cat that doesn't even exist. It sounds crazy, but this whole thing turned into a wild, frustrating nightmare that got way out of hand. At first, I thought it was just some annoying complaint, but then it escalated in ways I never expected. Karen was relentless, sending letters, making calls, and dragging me through meetings with the HOA board. All because of this phantom feline. What's even crazier is when the cops finally got involved. You'd think they'd just want to see the cat to clear things up, right? But no. When they asked Karen to show the cat, she completely lost it. She started screaming and acting like she was caught in a lie. I stood there in shock, watching this whole scene unfold, wondering how someone could be so obsessed with a problem that doesn't even exist. It felt like a bad movie, but it was my real life. This isn't just about a pet or HOA drama. It's about how quickly things can spiral. When people refuse to listen and instead choose to escalate conflicts unnecessarily. There's a bigger story here about boundaries, assumptions, and the power of standing your ground when faced with unfair accusations. But the weirdest part, after all the shouting and threats, the cat never showed up because it doesn't exist. I'm going to take you through everything that happened, step by step, the emails, the phone calls, the showdown with the police, and what this all means for me and my community. You're going to want to stick around because the next part gets even more intense. So, what really happened behind the scenes with Karen and her imaginary cat? Let's dive in. So here's the backstory. I live in a quiet neighborhood. One of those places where everyone knows each other, and the HOA is pretty strict about rules. I've always tried to be a good neighbor, following the guidelines and keeping things peaceful. But Karen, she's different. She's one of those people who's always watching, waiting for something to complain about. I never thought much of it until she suddenly claimed I had a cat, and that this cat was causing problems for other residents. The funny part is, I don't even own a cat. I don't have any pets at all. Yet Karen kept insisting that this invisible cat was roaming around, making noise, scratching property, and even leaving messes. At first, I thought maybe she was just mistaken or had me confused with someone else. But no, she was dead serious. She filed a formal complaint with the HOA, demanding action. And things quickly got out of hand. The HOA sent me warnings. And I tried explaining calmly that I didn't have a cat, but Karen pushed harder. She started talking to other neighbors, stirring up rumors and making it sound like I was hiding something. I even got strange messages from people I barely knew, all asking if my cat problem was real. It felt like I was trapped in some kind of bizarre neighborhood drama that made no sense. Then, the real shock came when the police showed up. The HOA had involved them, saying there was a pet violation that needed to be checked. When the officers asked Karen to produce the cat, or at least show some proof, her reaction was completely unexpected. She began yelling, refusing to cooperate, acting like she was caught in a lie, but still insisting the cat existed. The cops looked confused, and I was just standing there, watching it all unfold like a scene from a strange reality show. What's going on with Karen? Why is she so obsessed with this imaginary cat? And why did the police get dragged into this? The tension in the neighborhood has been building ever since, and it's starting to feel like this is about way more than just a pet. Stay tuned, because the story isn't over yet, and you won't believe what happens next. After the police left, things didn't calm down like I hoped. Karen doubled down, convinced that somehow I was hiding the cat or covering something. But what really caught my attention was how some neighbors started taking her side without even asking me for my story. It felt like whispers behind my back, side glances when I walked by, and even a few icy conversations. Suddenly, this whole cat drama wasn't just about a pet anymore. It became a full-on neighborhood feud. What made it worse was the HOA's reaction. Instead of trying to get both sides and figure out what was really going on, they kept sending me notices and fines. Every time I tried to explain or ask for a hearing, they brushed me off or said I needed to resolve the issue. But how can I fix something that's not real? The rules they enforce felt less about fairness and more about power. And I started to wonder if Karen was using the HOA as her weapon to get at me. On top of that, I began digging into Karen's past a bit, trying to understand why she was so focused on this. Turns out, she's had conflicts with other neighbors before, mostly about minor things that somehow spiraled out of control. Some people described her as someone who thrives on drama, while others said she's just really passionate about community rules. Either way, her obsession with this non-existent cat seemed like the latest in a string of neighborhood battles. Meanwhile, I started getting anonymous notes slipped under my door, some threatening, some just weird. I couldn't tell if Karen was behind them or if other neighbors were just caught up in the tension. It was like living in a bubble where everything felt off and trust was fading fast. The police involvement left a mark too. Now, anytime anyone in the neighborhood sees me, they ask if the cat is still causing trouble or if I've finally found it. I've tried to laugh it off, but inside, it feels like the walls are closing in. What started as a strange accusation turned into something bigger, a fight for my peace and reputation. The question is, how far will Karen take this? And how much more will the HOA let it escalate? The next chapter might change everything. As days passed, the tension in the neighborhood kept growing thicker, like a storm about to break. Karen wasn't backing down. If anything, she was getting louder and more aggressive. She showed up unannounced at my door one afternoon, demanding to see the cat, accusing me of lying straight to her face. I stayed calm, but inside I was starting to feel trapped. Every time I tried to talk to the HOA, or even some of the neighbors, it felt like the whole community had already made up their minds about me. Then things took a turn I didn't expect. One evening, I came home to find a small crowd gathered outside my house. Karen was there, holding what looked like a piece of paper and shouting about proof of the cat's existence. My heart raced. Was she finally going to reveal something? Or was this another twist in the nightmare? People from the neighborhood were watching, whispering, some even recording on their phones. I felt exposed and vulnerable, like I was on trial without a chance to defend myself. I asked Karen calmly, "What proof do you have?" But she just yelled louder, refusing to explain. It was like she was performing for the crowd, trying to stir things up even more. The cops showed up. Again, this time because someone called them saying there was a disturbance. When they tried to get Karen to show any evidence, she froze, refused to answer, and then stormed off, leaving everyone confused. After that, the HOA called me to an emergency meeting. The notice was short and vague, but the tone was clear. This wasn't just about a cat anymore. There was talk about fines, possible eviction, and other penalties. I realized the fight had grown beyond a silly complaint. It was about control, power, and reputation. My nerves were shot. I kept wondering, how did something so absurd get so serious? I knew the next meeting would be crucial. The whole neighborhood seemed ready for a showdown, and I wasn't sure who would come out on top. Would Karen finally drop the act, or was she going to push this fight to the very edge? The suspense was unbearable, and I was stuck right in the middle, waiting for the moment everything would explode. Just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, a new twist threw everything into chaos. A few days before the emergency HOA meeting, I got an unexpected letter in my mailbox. It wasn't from the HOA or Karen, but from someone claiming to be a concerned neighbor, someone who said they had proof that the cat actually existed. My heart sank. After all this time, could there really be a cat? Was I missing something? I felt like I was losing grip on reality. The letter included a blurry photo of what looked like a small cat hiding behind a bush near my house. The handwriting was shaky, and the message was cryptic, but it was enough to send the neighborhood buzzing again. Suddenly, some neighbors who had been skeptical started whispering about seeing strange feline shadows around my property. Karen's smirk got wider whenever she passed me now, as if she finally had me cornered. I tried to figure out if the photo was real or some kind of trick. I asked around, but no one would admit to sending the letter. It felt like I was caught in a game of cat and mouse, or maybe just Cat and Karen. To make matters worse, the HOA started using the photos as evidence in their notices, threatening heavier fines and even legal action. The pressure was crushing, but here's the thing. No matter how many times I searched, no cat ever appeared. I even set up cameras around my yard, hoping to catch anything that might explain the mystery. Nothing showed up. Just me, waiting and watching while the community turned against me. Then, at the worst possible moment, Karen dropped another bombshell. She claimed to have spoken with a local animal control officer who supposedly confirmed a complaint,